everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar. I am your host, as usual, and I'm joined this week by the sage of Saltcoats himself, Mr. Andy McGowan. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, David. Hello, listeners. Great to be here again.
Well, let's get straight into it then. How are you enjoying our sojourn at Hampden so far?
Sojourn, that's a nice word. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a nice cafe up Cathcart Road that I've already getting the habit of going and having a massive cheesecake before the game. So how's that for
it's making the best of it.
Casual lifestyle?
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's making the best of it. I knew I was getting too old for the kind of usual behaviour at the fact by the first time we went to Tynecastle and found a cafe instead of a pub and had a nice pot of tea and a sandwich, and I thought, right, that's age is creeping up on me now. I think that the first thing people will mention, of course, is the crowd at the weekend, but I don't think that was just because Hampden. I do think had we been at Ibrox, there's probably another 15,000 there with the CCCS and whatnot in operation, but it's a legitimate way to tell a football club you're not happy. And I think that people exercising the right to say, do you know what? No, I'm not. Add in the fact it's a stadium that, as a support, we don't particularly like, right? And I don't think that's just Rangers fans, by the way. Most Scottish football fans I speak to don't particularly like Hampden. It's not the easiest to get to. Once you get in there, there's a fair old chance you're not going to be able to see good parts of the pitch. And 5:45 on a Saturday night, I think, is a pretty shitty time for a kickoff, to be honest.
I think every factor you've thrown in there adds to the mix. I do think there's a wee bit of a signal to the club. I think there's a lot of fans exercise that right. And I have kind of said for a while now that if you really want to impose change, the ones that are kind of wanting a lot of radical change, then that's how you do it. You don't buy your season ticket. The problem is that we've got a season ticket culture, and we've got maybe they're losing. I'm saying they're losing a scarcity around season ticket or available season tickets. So you give up your season ticket, you're no getting it back. As the probable outcome.
That is true. Knowing people that have been on the waiting list for a while, I know. I've been trying to get a couple for family members, not been able. So I mean, it is real. Whether that's affected by this year, I don't know. But currently, certainly in the summer that just went past, it's still the case. You give up your season ticket, there's absolutely no guarantee you'll be able to go and get one.
Yeah. So you throw all that in, and the time's a joke. 4:46 on a Saturday night. See even a Friday night fixture. They are much better because it's the weekend. Folk like it. They get loused to work and they get away to football. By that time on a Saturday, I don't know about you, but I was hanging about all day Saturday waiting for my bus, which was at an ungodly hour, and it just didn't feel. It was a waste of the Saturday, to be honest, until you got to football.
It was maybe worse because it was summer, but by the time we get out, although it was still light, I look at my watch and it's like, Jesus Christ, need dash home for match of the day, for Christ's sake. So no, I can totally understand people's frustrations at it. But although there are the factors I just mentioned, the biggest one was people are unhappy, and I think deservedly so, given everything that's been going on around Rangers this summer, which we will get into later on, of course, folks. But let's talk about the game, Andy. Oh, of course, it's a bit of a counselling session for both of us at the moment. But we did win, and here I'm going to maybe sound a bit. I am moaning here, and I'm not in a way, but I kind of am, I suppose, right? My moan is actually from a positive place, which is my frustration on Saturday, Andy, was that I felt I should have been coming out of that game going, well, things haven't been going well, but we enjoyed that. That was a 4 or 5-0 victory, couple of goals in the first half, and then we added to it in the second. Really good performance, really good victory. And the fact that the game was live all the way until Ross McCausland scores in injury time, that is my only real frustration about it, because I thought Rangers did play quite well. And I've watched the game back, incidentally, just to check that. It doesn't feel that way at the time because you're frustrated. As I say, the game is live. You're on tenterhooks. It's not completely done. But watching that game back, had Rangers won 5-1, I think that would have been an accurate reflection of what we saw, of the chances created. So that was my main frustration. It wasn't that they played badly, because they didn't. It was just you should be making this easier for yourselves, guys.
100%. Strangely enough, I watched the full game back as well, which I wouldn't normally do for a game. It was kind of as nondescript as that, but I was curious because at the game, and I don't know about you or listeners, I was anxious and frustrated before the game started because, just because of the mood around the camp and the fact that we're not firing on cylinders and we're needing new players, and there's several players that get picked that you would gladly drive to the airport. So I think during the game, my reaction to things that were happening in game were a wee bit OTT, to be honest. I was losing the plot a few times, and I thought, no, I'm going to watch this back just to see. And you're right, we actually played all right. And if you're looking for massive tactical insight here as to why we didn't do it, it's nothing more complicated, David, as we simply, week after week, month after month, season after season now, don't take our chances. And you can put that down to quality, you can put it down to mentality when you're in front of goal. But we had Danilo, right? I'll give Danilo a pass because it's his first game back for a long time, right? He had two decent chances that were, 60% chances. Czerny missed two good chances. Matondo missed two good chances. There was others that weren't quite as clear cut. So I think, as you say, 4-5 nothing on a good day would not have flattered us whatsoever. It kind of frustrates me that we don't give ourselves that luxury where we get a goal in the first 10, 15 minutes, build on it, and then go in at half-time 2-0, because I think there's a lot of things comes for this intensity that we're having to have. I think I might be wrong, but see, injuries, you can avoid injuries if you're 2 or 3 goals up and you start.
If you're 3 up after an hour, you can
exactly.
Start. Yeah, absolutely. And the other team aren't running as hard at 3-0 down as they are at 1-0 down. That's a fact.
The bites out the game. You've got control of the ball. You use substitutes far more loosely. All that over a season or over a matter of weeks or during a busy period, it makes a difference. There's no question about it. But instead, we've got this thing where we're tight to the end. The crowd is then there for, as I'm saying, you're no relaxed. You're waiting for the sucker punch because it's just the way things are going. Nothing would surprise you. So we need to start taking chances, and we need to do it because we've been playing far better teams than St Johnstone. They had a couple of wee incidents where they could have gave us a bit of problem, but there were times where we were loose and they gave it straight back to us, and I'm like, you're shite. Thank God they're shite.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game Rangers should have won, absolutely, and did so in the end, reasonably comfortably, but late comfortably. And I think that's an excellent point about, we have a habit of not putting games away until late or needing to be hanging on at the end. And when you do that, these are 2 games that have gone full bore. This and Motherwell, for example, that didn't need to. The Rangers had done more than enough, and it is a question of just doing the key thing, which is putting the ball in the back of the net. It has been a problem for us. Manager made quite a few changes, and I thought some worked really well and some not so much, Andy. So we'll go through those. First of all, he brought in Kieran Dowell to play in the midfield, and Connor Barron, who I think had some ridiculous running stats against Kiev. He was rested, so probably because of that, obviously with the injury concerns that you mentioned. It's been over a year now, and I know it's been badly affected by injury, but I just can't see what Kieran Dowell does. And when he got subbed after, he hit a simple pass that he knocked straight out of play, and the manager immediately turned and signalled to Barron, get up and get ready kind of thing. And I wondered, is that your last opportunity, basically? Because he never gives me any sign of permanence at all, Dowell, that he's going to be somebody that can nail down a first team slot.
No. Clement's been generous to Dale over the piece. You think back to games he's played. We played him at Dingwall last season, which was a mistake. And the problem I've got with him is that he came in and he was a boysman, and he'll be in decent wages, but I thought, right, he's a boysman, and he's got something to offer, great pedigree, and it's just never happened. And the problem I've got is that when I watch him, and one of my biggest gripes about the Rangers squad, and usually the first 11, is they're just the wrong side of power in terms of balance, right? You can have wee players, you can have small players, you can have slight players, you can have strong players. We're just the wrong side in that power equation, that strength and power and running power. You can see it or attacking set pieces with no power, right? And he kind of epitomises it because he looks fragile. He's 6'2" or something like that, and he's not a wee guy, but there's no bite, there's no running with the ball, really. There's no covering. You've kind of made your mind up with him because of what you've seen before. My mind goes back to 3-each game against Celtic last season where they break and he's jogging back as if it's a Sunday football match. Stuff like that sticks with me, and I'm kind of done with him. And I could kind of give him an allowance if we're getting an odd through ball or we were getting an odd shot or we were getting decent set pieces for him or something like that, but there's nothing like that. And if I'm being really, really generous, I'd say, right, well, he's a wee bit deeper than I think he's used to playing previously. But even at that, a player of his supposed standard should be not quite bossing it, but it should be a lot more coming off him from in a game like that.
A 21-year-old for Aberdeen has come in and looked good in that role.
But Barron's shown us what is possible. He's setting a standard.
None of this 6-month waiting period stuff.
Exactly.
He's come in and he's grabbing his position. Another player who was brought back from seemingly a bit of a deep freeze was Rabbi Matondo, and he started. And I must admit, I actually liked the performance of Rabbi Matondo. Now, it's still erratic, and I still don't think long term he's right for us. If we could get him out this window, I would absolutely say to do so. But he is there, he is earning a wage, so you might as well use him, especially in a position you don't have a lot of players. But I did think that he was at least busy. He contributed. He set up the first goal, winning the ball back actually in the middle of the park, and then slipping it through to Cyril Dessers. But one thing I did like, Andy, was I thought his link-up play with Jefte, who I thought was the best Rangers player on the park on Saturday, was quite promising. They seemed to be an embryonic form of an understanding there. They seemed to complement each other quite well, which I liked. And, with Jefte, he'll be given much bigger defensive tests than that. But going forward, I think you can see the quality that has at least made us want to go and get him, which is that he's confident, he can go past a man, he passes the ball well, and he can whip in a really good cross. So I also liked his action Saturday. I thought he went out, maybe, coming off that horrendously unfair red card, he was channeling some of his aggression, but he channeled it, I thought, really positively, and for me, he was a standout, and Matondo benefited from that.
Problem with Matondo is that there's an expectation on him as a senior player by virtue of the wages he's on, to be quite honest, or we think he's on. And he's never really, you talked about permanence there with Dowell, he's never really gave an air of a player that should be in the first team when he's fit and available. He played well on Saturday, and I thought that was because from the first moment he was trying to be his man, he wasn't checking back. I think he takes confidence in the early stages of a game when he gets a bit of the beating of the fullback or anybody, because I just cannot understand how we can't get some kind of tune out of a boy as fast as that, because his pace is unbelievable. One of the fastest players I've ever seen play for Rangers, and surely there is some way we can get a dividend for that. But you're right, he created things, he took the initiative, he played like a senior player on Saturday. I do think you're absolutely correct in Jefte, because he looked like a player that we'll enjoy watching. He's easy on the eye, he's stylish, as you say, he's supremely comfortable in the ball, as you would expect a Brazilian to be. And what's refreshing amongst his peers or in that team is that his first instinct is to go forward with the ball at pace. Right, and he drives in, does that wee diagonal run in as opposed to out where Barisic would do. So he does the same kind of thing that Yilmaz has been good at, which is coming that inside channel. And see, when you do that, teams don't really know what to do, because does the midfielders go to it? Do the wide people come into it? It's a dangerous thing for a fullback or a deeper winger to do. So that worked really well. That was a high point of Saturday for me, because from the first minute to the last, they two, or to Matondo went off, they two looked like a good combination that gave St Johnstone loads of problems. You're right, there'll be more tests for Jefte, but he's 20, he's playing in the UK for the first time, he's played in a separate league we got him for?
Separate league he was there last year, yeah.
So he's playing at a standard which probably comparable to the rest of the league when you're not playing Celtic or the top teams. So he will benefit for game time, now that Yilmaz is out for a wee while. But I know I'm interested to see what if this link with the other left back we've been spoken about the creation if that's true, because it might be.
If it's true, then I would
true.
suggest that and it is a big if at the moment. But if it is true, then it kind of for me that would seem to be giving up on the Ridvan experiment. Who just can't see fit enough.
Injuries not durable enough, and it might be that we see you have to a wee bit further apart.
Yeah, and you have the option, but you would still need kind of to experience one there. Interestingly, on the fullbacks, you were absolutely right there. Both of them were pushing inside a lot more. This kind of post-Pep Guardiola inverted fullback thing, but both of them were comfortable doing it at the weekend. And that, I think, did allow the players on either flank a bit more space. And Czerny and Matondo were involved a lot. You know, times it didn't go brilliantly, obviously, but they were still getting on the ball and getting involved a lot more. So I think that it's been a criticism levelled at the manager. I think you could see a shape and a style in what he wanted to do on Saturday. On the other wing, Tav is very loose at the moment, and I don't know if it's a confidence issue, I don't know if it's a form issue, I don't know if it's an age issue, but he gave the ball away a lot, particularly in the first half, trying to play out at times and playing us into bother. And for me, Andy, this is maybe old-fashioned, so I'll hold my hands up to this and maybe overly simplistic, but I was always a great believer that if a defender isn't in great form, go back to simplify it first. Right, I'll just deal with it just now. And then as I begin to do that, things will start to come more naturally. I kind of feel that if Tav is going to play, that's what he has to do. He is struggling defensively, even allowing for the fact that a lot of Rangers fans have never considered he was a very good defender, but he got roasted for pace several times in the Kiev game. And then at the weekend, as I say, particularly in the first half, he was very guilty of giving the ball away in bad areas.
I'm hoping it's a hangover for the stop-start pre-season he had, because it was clear that he was carrying a wee injury here or there pre-season and he wasn't at full tilt. I'm hoping, but it would be daft to consider the guy's now 32 and that naturally pace, that kind of thing degrades. But what worried me on Saturday with Tavernier, he had a stinker right by his standards and he wasn't coming out challenges with the ball a couple of times. There was one in the box and it cost us a goal. There's other ones where he's getting in and he's not coming out with the ball and stuff like that. For me, is kind of unforgivable for a defender. So your point about doing the basics, it would probably apply to anybody that is a defender. Tavernier's not a defender. He's so much more than that. I don't think he would see himself as a defender first and foremost. Plus, we still looked at him today so much, Davey. You know, we're talking about Yefty's role.
But maybe when you're not defending well, you focus on that and you say, right, okay, because he isn't contributing a lot going forward at the moment. But make sure you're not costing us at the back then, first and foremost.
No, I agree. There's just something off just now about him in that he almost looks as if he knows he's nowhere near it. It's worried with Celtic game coming up because they always put Maeda on him and he's obviously a pace merchant.
Yeah,
so
that's a worry right now. There's no getting away from that. If he's going to go in again, I mean, he's struggled on occasion against Maeda anyway.
Top of his game.
This version of him is a concern. There's no doubt about that.
But let me ask you this then. Did you not think that Sterling, because I was delighted to see him in there because this is what I've been wanting for ages. I think that's Sterling's best role or best utilisation for us at this point, right? Maybe no long term, but I think at this moment in time, given what we've got, what we've no got in the squad, Sterling's got something to offer sitting there. I thought he offered up a wee bit more protection for the likes of Yefty, Tavernier moving forward. But, you know, if you ask Clement, he'd probably say there's no difference from what we had before with Barron. But I just think Sterling's physicality and his ability to cover ground and go from left to right in terms of coverage just makes me feel a wee bit safer about the likes of Tavernier versus Celtic, if that's what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I like him in there. What I did like on Saturday is that we didn't go with an out-and-out number 10. Tom Lawrence was ill.
Yep.
So the manager shoved Diamande up. And although, as we've mentioned, I didn't think that Kieran Dowell played particularly well, I thought the balance was a hell of a lot better. And that's the first game this season, Andy, where teams weren't breaking really quickly on us through the middle of the park. And I don't think that was coincidence.
No. I think that's down to Sterling. And we've spoke about it. We spoke about it at a live show, didn't we? About Diamande at number 10 and the fact he's got a number 10 on his back, literally. And I think he's a different type of number 10 than if we've got a Lawrence or a Cantwell or whoever in there, because at one point during that game, I was like, who is your number 10? Because Diamandi covers a lot more ground than a normal number 10 or normal Tom Lawrence would, right? But what I like about Diamandi is he can get turned and he's quick to release the ball. He doesn't need to run with the ball to make something happen. He'll look for a through pass, especially in the second half of Dessers. So it's an interesting dynamic, which you said we didn't play with number 10, but probably didn't. We played with Mary.
It was more 2-8s. It was more.
Aye, that's the word.
It was exactly more Sterling sitting, and just in front of him were the two was Diamandi
box to box,
and Dowell. And I thought I just thought we looked more solid for a start, and we created plenty. So it wasn't that you could say, but that was at the expense of creativity, because it quite clearly wasn't. You mentioned half a dozen really excellent chances we made. So I just prefer it, and I think we look better for it. And if you are going to do that with the number 10. And say, right, okay, we accept that leaves us a wee bit less solid in the middle of the park. The number 10's got to be producing a lot in there to counter that, and he isn't, Lawrence. He
not at the moment.
Not any in this season, really.
No. Funnily enough, I've got a hold out hope for Lawrence and Cherny playing together, because they're both players that don't have the pace to, speed past players, but what they are is they're both, how can I put it, 1-2 players. I think they would link up well in tight areas, and we've seen glimpses of it for the first half against Motherwell with Cherny. It was at central, all these wee kind of triangles that were actually breaking through into dangerous areas. So I don't know if he would play that formation against a team that we're having to press against, like we had to do against Kiev, like we'll probably have to do against Celtic, where they'll have more of the ball. But it's certainly an option to have more traditional midfielders in those three positions, as opposed to Lawrence is a kind of come striker, come midfielder, and he's not really been either, really, for the games we've seen so far pre-season or this season.
And I do want to pick out someone who I thought had a very good game, and it's somebody I've been critical of already this season. That was John Souttar. Mm-hmm. That's the Souttar I wanted to see. I thought he was fine defensively and solid, which is obviously the most important thing. But he kept getting on the ball, striding out of defence, breaking their shape and setting his own attacks. I thought that was excellent. He seemed more of that. He just seemed to play with a bit more confidence now. Although Proper went off, and the manager said he doesn't think it's a bad injury, and I wonder if it is having him there and playing on the right, not having to play on the left so much, that did that, because he just looked a more confident player.
So the danger of making this a David and Andy nod and agree each other show, but we spoke about Souttar a couple of weeks ago and how we had slight concerns about that 10%. It makes you a top class player or makes you a Rangers third or fourth choice centre half. What I've been wanting to see for Souttar for a long time is that he's not acted or struck me as a captain within the Rangers squad at any point, really, since he came to the club, right? But he looked like that as a leader on the park, because, as you say, he was leading with us striding. He's extremely confident, striding away for snapping strikers at his ankles, and his passing was spot on. He was getting the ball out wide early to Yefty and to Tavernier when he had the opportunity. So he was central to actually how we played on Saturday, and I just thought he led by example, and he needs to do that more often. It's it's a hard thing to quantify when you watch a player and he's like, he's one of the leaders on the park. I always think he's been a secondary player finding his feet at Rangers up to this point. And do you know what, David? It might just be one of the ones where you get a player that's a domestic player, comes to us and takes a season and a half to actually mature into being a Rangers player. We've seen it before time and again. I always use Naismith as an example, but there's hundreds of them. And his first season as a write-off, so it really only had last season as his first real season as a Rangers player, and hopefully what I'm saying here is something that's happening where he becomes a real Rangers player and nails down, because the challenge for him really is, as you your first choice centre-half in the first half, one of the first choices in the centre-half pairing, or are you going to be a third or fourth, like a Balogun or whatever? That's the challenge to him, is to be as good as he can every week to make sure that, come on, can he no pick him? And that we're sitting there saying, aye, he's your first choice centre-half along with Proper.
Yeah, I just like the way he carried himself on Saturday. And, as we say on here, when we're discussing the games, it is literally about the game. And I was critical of him for some performances I didn't think were good. And fair's fair, you can't then go, right, well, I'm not going to give him any praise.
No.
When he does play well, and he did play well. But as you say, we need to see more of it. To the manufactured controversy of the week, which is, of course, the Rangers' first goal. And ball slip through to Cyril Dessers. He does. Matondo does great, incidentally. Dessers then latches onto it. A defender goes down, I thought, quite dramatically. So that got my spidey senses tingling. But Dessers' fantastic composure, something that I've moaned about him before, but cuts inside. And then that was a this is going in shot. I loved that. This was no fucking about. Straight hammered goal. And the referee blows. And it goes to VAR. And I thought, right, okay, we'll need to wait and see what VAR says. I seen a replay of it, and I said, right, okay, the boys kicked Dessers. It's not a foul. That'll be overruled. He gets sent to the monitor, and he does it. St Johnstone's complaint was, first of all, that he blew before the ball went in the net. He didn't. Now, if he had, that does change it. We saw that in the match in England at the weekend, Brentford versus Crystal Palace, where the referee, a boy was hitting a direct free kick, Eze, and as the ball is in the air, the ref blew for a foul. So before it hits the net, and the ref admitted he made a mistake. It was an error. He shouldn't have done it. He should have let it go. But VAR can't intervene then because the whistle has already gone. That did not happen in the case of Rangers. Where St Johnstone had a complaint, and it was, to be fair, something that would have annoyed me, even if it didn't change the outcome, is that the referee is pointing for a free kick. But he hasn't blown, and it is the old cliche Andy of play to the whistle. The thing that struck me as interesting, though, was that he arrived at the right decision. Him and the VAR team, eventually they arrived at the right decision. And if you watch it back, none of the St Johnstone players who can affect the play stop. Right? They do. They keep going. But if you remember back to the Old Firm game, the Johnston handball, now it was offside, so it was the correct decision was eventually reached. But when Rangers questioned the process, everyone was told, or we were all told, shut up, we got to a right decision, shut your mouth. Well, why is it different this weekend? And need I even ask that?
So that's a unique thing about this, is that the decision has... this is how you know it's the right decision, because nobody's actually saying, Rangers want to watch or get preferential treatment. It's so indisputably the right decision. I've got some sympathy for St Johnstone, because I never jumped up to celebrate the goal because I saw the referee lift his hand as if he'd give a foul. But that's no the action that matters. It's the blowing of the whistle, as you know. So I can understand why they are a wee bit peeved at it. And if it was the other way about, I'd be a wee bit peeved at it. But if the whistle wasn't blown, then, this is where the rules are the rules, and delaying it. In the VAR, ever since VAR, we always knew that the game has to be played, or the move has to be played to conclusion. That's the whole point of VAR. You can't use VAR if that doesn't happen. So the referee's done the right thing in letting it play out and then blowing the whistle, because he's meant to referee it just as if VAR wasn't there. And Michael Stewart is the one that would point to, because he got selling all sorts of knots about this, which isn't surprising because he doesn't know the rules of football. But it was the right decision. But I can understand why St Johnstone are like, hold on a minute. But what Levine should be saying now is, I've watched it back, I understand what happened. Could have been better, but it is a goal. So Levine's trying to get mileage out of it. I don't think if it's justified, to be honest.
It's a bit annoying, but it doesn't change the fact that it was the right decision. It
was the right decision, and if you're one of the SFA observers, what are you going to feed back to that referee, who's a relatively young referee? And by the way, I don't think he's a bad referee. I've watched him a couple of times.
Really? He was a pillock that didn't give the Sterling penalty at St Johnstone.
Oh, is he? I take it back then.
Yeah, he was the guy that missed. When the boy arrives about 20 yards away.
I remember exactly.
Sterling about 15. He had to go to VAR. But actually,
that's your barrister-like brain remembering details, David.
Yeah, well, no, I just that's unfair, right? Because he might be a good ref, but people make mistakes, and they one just actually didn't cost us because VAR stepped in both times to do it. I do dislike incidents like that because I think it happens far too often across football. I'm not going to go at the referee for this, where a defender goes down and they just blow automatically. Because it's easier. And I think that there are plenty of defenders, in fact all defenders, who use it when they've got themselves into bother. Like there, he'd got wrong side of Dessers, so he he chucks himself down hoping that he'll get a free kick. And in the old days, it would have worked. But Stuart to me is, we've spoken about him before. I think most people would agree that are listening to the show about him. But to me, it's that really offensive thing about somebody who either doesn't know or refuses to learn the rules. And at this stage of the game, to not know how VAR works as a fan, I think is bad. But to not know how VAR works when you're paid to talk about football at this stage of the game, I think is beyond embarrassing.
And it would get, will I ever respect him? Probably not, but it would get a modicum of respect.
I think probably there is an out-and-out lie.
He'd get a modicum of kind of, all right, then if he turns and says, do you know what, I've got that wrong. Because you hear all the time with good commentators. McCoy does it all the time, says, having watched that again, I was wrong. But if you listen to it, it's actually hilarious because the passage of play, and he's still talking about it because he knows he has to keep talking about it because he needs to slowly but surely unwind. And he goes for this is bizarre and it's wrong to this is a goal. It's amazing how he kind of moves himself back into a position where he kind of thinks to himself, I've got myself out of that one.
Yeah.
But as you say, if anybody was listening to that, they'd be like, what am I paying for? There's zero insight here. This is just a diddy that doesn't know rules. Again and again and again. You think back to, what was his phrase? Biomechanics. No, that shite. He didn't know the rules and he still doesn't.
No, and refuses to learn, and that is why I think it's fairly unforgivable that you charge money to put this guy on air. I don't think that squares up. But anyway, let's move on then to some off-the-field stuff. Rumours, and we have to say it is only rumours at the moment, that Rangers are close to appointing a new CEO, and the name mentioned is Jim Gillespie, who is the vice chairman of St Mirren, CEO of a charity named The Kibble. Contrasting reports, I think it's fair to say. You have some people saying who are St Mirren fans, he's done a fantastic job there, a big part of their recent success. Other fans with complaints about some of the things that he's done in his time there. Andy, for me at the moment, because I'm not going to lie and say I know everything about this guy, because I don't. The name was sort of out of left field to me when it came out at the weekend. For me, it's more about getting in a CEO full stop that is allowed then to get on with the job and implement what I would hope is a vision that he has shown and demonstrated to the board, and that's why they want him in the first place.
I know nothing about him. I know nothing about Kibble. I would raise caution on listening to St Mirren fans, because I think fans of any football club, you'd be hard pushed to find a majority glowing report on CEOs or end of the board. It's just a kind of football fan thing where you're going to be critical or hypercritical on a number of things for your hierarchy in the boardroom. I'd prefer to get viewpoints from inside St Mirren. If I was really wanting to get a judge on, what is he like, I'd rather speak to the management, the coaching staff, people in around the club. Does he have an influence in there? Is it a good influence? Is it a pernicious influence? And I think we should do ourselves a favour and reserve judgment, right? If it's him, because as you say, we need a CEO. We've not had a CEO. I don't think we've ever had a CEO since Gordon Smith in the dark days of the Spivs, where they put kind of policemen in his inverted commas CEO. Craig Mathers, the boy Graham, can't remember
the Man City guy.
The Man City guy, and I think the structure's already there, so it's not going to be a CEO that's going to come in and rip it up and start again. We know that John Bennett, one of his first acts as chairman, was to effectively revamp the entire exec board. And this is how when I hear things about changing the board, I'm like, right, what do you mean change the board? Because they've largely not been there for a year. So I don't think he's going to come in and make massive changes. And it might be he's a wee bit of a continuity CEO where he's coming into a vision that's already imprinted and is going to be seen through, and he'll be either implementing it or tweaking it at the sides,
That doesn't fill me with hope.
Well, it depends. David, we don't know what the vision is, really.
That's part of the problem, isn't it? They've never explained it. And I think that here's something that has to change, which is, whenever I've mentioned this, sometimes some of the things that's been fed back to me is, well, what do you want? Do you want every single detail? And I'm like, no, I don't want every single detail, but I need better. I need more than, and I think the support deserve more than we want to be successful. Well, whoop-de-fucking-do, right? I mean, anybody can come up with that. It's what are the timescales? How are we going to get there? What are the plans in place? And then I want to see evidence of it. And the thing I go back to, I thought was incredibly telling. We have heard a lot about player trading model, that phrase, heard it a lot the last 5 years. And then the chairman comes out in an interview and says, yes, we don't have one. It's a myth. His words, not mine. So for me, I want to hear, okay, what are you going to do to actually implement it and then see it, come to fruition? So I'm not asking them to give us a day by day, here's what the CEO did today, but I think you could give us a vision, and then we should be able to start to see steps on how we are going to make that journey, if you like.
So I agree and I disagree, and I've been on this pod 100 times, and obviously I'm different because I just think differently from most fans. The first Bennett interview 2 years ago, was it? The best in class interviews, it gets called now and gets used against him.
I don't think he likes that one anymore. I don't think he likes the mention of it, to be fair.
No, and I don't blame him, because I knew what he meant, and he knew what he meant, and it's just been used as a barb against him and anything goes wrong. But in effect, the disabled facilities is going to be the best in class. The training ground is best in class. The class is Scotland. It's against Celtic basically. So I knew what it meant, but it was a case of having to make sure that message he gave out about the 4 pillars. Remember, that was the vision gift wrap to the whole support. To say, right, this is what the foundation of our vision is. And I still think it is the foundation of what the vision is. What you're asking for there, Dave, is more colour, because we're 2 years down the line and we've seen nothing for it, really, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's fair enough. You've then got to balance that with, well, we are a corporation and we do want to have some secrets from our competition.
Oh, yeah. I accept that. That's fair.
Aye. And the reason that I gave Ross Wilson more time than anybody is because I was privy to his presentation, because one night I was at a club 1872, I think it was AGM or something like that, and Rangers had put a thing on after it for us, and it was Ross Wilson and his PowerPoint, believe it or not, and I came out of that saying, right, well, there is a plan, but it wasn't one for public consumption, if you like. You might be sitting there saying, oh, that's great, you go to Club 1872 AGM and you get a presentation that the rest of the club don't get. Well, it was a kind of private viewing, if you like. So
to Club 1872 members, though.
The AGM, the people that were there at the AGM.
Well, in that case, that's different, because
shareholders.
It wasn't an invite on anybody who wanted to be there could join, and
yes.
So I don't have an issue with that.
So there will be, where I do agree with you, David, is the kind of, here's the timelines, because once you've got timelines, then you're kind of answerable to them. The problem that they've got is that they don't want to become hostage to fortune, because, as we've seen time and again, they've put plans in place and beyond their control, Bisgrove leaves, Zeb Jacobs leaves. The transfer market is currently strangling us with, a matter of weeks to go at the end of the transfer window. So sometimes I can understand, if I was their shoes, I'd be like, well, I'm a wee bit reticent to give out absolutes, because the one thing that Rangers fans and football fans love is absolutes, that they can pull out their back hip and say, you said this didn't happen, wallop, and there's no real there's no give for context. This is where I always get stuck, because I come and say, but context, you've got to include the context, because nothing happens in a bubble. We're in a tough gig just now, because it's not just about Rangers, it's the unspoken spectre of the fact that Celtic are absolutely purring on and off the park, and they've had a decade to get into that rhythm. And that's the problem for us, is that whatever we do will be judged against them to a degree. Because there is good things happening. It's just been completely wiped out by missteps. And there'll be more missteps. And this is where I think we need to be... I think we could do ourselves a big favour by just turning down the dial on the noise a wee bit, because... And I'll be interested in listeners' views on this. They might think, nah, Andy, had enough. But a couple of things, if you want to work in absolutes... I've spoke about the board, investors, right? John Bennett, Halstead, George Taylor, all the guys. They're all there kind of because John Bennett, you'd agree, right? He's kind of brought them at the table. So if he walks, chances are one or all of them will walk. We need them absolutely for the short term, the medium term financial stability of the club. That's just a fact for me, right? And if you're wanting to get rid of them, fine. But you need to have an extraction plan and a replacement for that for example, the revolving credit facility, our overdraft, the thing that sees us get through a season is provided by John Bennett personally, right? Now, you then get the kind of counter argument, but he's taking 4% and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. So you need to have a kind of logical adult plan in place before you start saying, right, I just want to burn the place down. So board's going nowhere. Sometimes folk will say, aye, literally, Andy, but board's gone nowhere. I think that Clement's new contract, Davey, you tell me if you agree or disagree, was a deliberate intention to signal that we are going to see, I think, at least this season through, regardless of how hairy it gets with Clement at the helm. Because, Bennett talk about rinse and repeat, be no more. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Celtic's biggest gift when we went down the leagues was ability or continuity. We've had no continuity, and whenever we get it, it usually gets upended by something. So I think we need that. And we just desperately need to move out Hadji, Cantwell, any other big earners, or any earners actually, and just free up space for some fresh blood, because I think our entire season depends upon it. I think if we get them out and 2, 3, 4 in, it could transform the season for us, make us a lot more competitive. But if we go into the rest of the season with what we've got, it's going to be very, very testing for everybody. And in that context that I might bring to the table, even I'll be like, fucking context, it doesn't really matter. This is where we are, and we're going to have to suffer it. So it's double-edged sword, Davey. You can see benefit and you can see bright spots here or there, but at this moment in time, we just need results. We just need a bit of feel-good. We need a break. Do you know that? We do need a break, and we need refereeing decisions as well, we'll admit it. Well, you think about it, we're talking about last season. Dessers goal, 3 disallowed goals against Celtic, for Christ's sake.
It is actually amazing to think that, the way that the mood has been, if we beat Celtic in 2 weeks...
Oh, we cock a hoop.
That's it. I mean, it just goes... I don't think I'd use the term hoop, Andy, involved in it. And the steel's here, at least.
I will.
I saw the steel here. I can't honestly, accurately say how big it's going to be to get back to Ibrox, because I get, when people said, look, we just need to get our shoulder to the wheel and do it, and we're doing that, right? But you do miss it. It's our home. I can't wait. I mean, I cannot wait to be back at Ibrox.
There's nothing beats the feeling that booing your own team off at half time in your own park.
You're absolute cynic.
No, it'll make a massive difference, because Hampden's Hampden, and it's a wee novelty, but it's I don't think it's affected us yet, but it's, if we'd had an Aberdeen or something like that, it may have been a different game.
I think domestically, I'd have fancied our chances against Kiev a lot stronger.
Oh, aye.
To be honest.
Absolutely.
But that's done. Nothing we can do about it now. Let's just hope that, as I say, all the deliveries are there. Chairman's aspirational date was the 28th. Let's hope that happens, because 20th of September, not August, before anyone gets excited. But it could... Because as negative as it was not being there, I think you then get, if you like, as the thing returns, you get a huge boost.
Aye.
From being back at Ibrox.
Hopefully it's the 29th, because I think we might have a European game either on the Wednesday or the Thursday, and if it's the Thursday, it'll be moved to Sunday, because I've got a wedding on the Saturday. So
well, I think you're probably right then. I think it will be the Sunday, but we'll need to wait and see what the European schedule is. Right then, folks, that will do us for this week here on Heart and Hand. Cammy will be here later in the week with Heart and Hand Extra, and he will preview the Ross County game at the weekend. Of course, if you want to catch up with us, you can join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/Heart and Hand. You can sign up from just $1.99 per month and get up to 25 shows every single week. We cover everything to do with Rangers in more depth than you'll get anywhere else. Andy, a pleasure as always, my friend. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us today.
Thanks for having me back on, Davey. Always a pleasure.
I'll be back here next week. Until then, folks, have a very good week. I'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.